Hi, everybody. This is Saad for the Sad Truth. In several of my works, including in two of my books, The Evolutionary Bases of Consumption and The Consuming Instinct, I discuss a debate that's been going on for many decades in marketing, the local versus global advertising debate. Let me briefly mention what it refers to, and then I'll talk about how I propose that evolutionary psychology might help us navigate through this particular conundrum. So, the local versus global advertising debate is the idea of whether a local approach, so developing an advertising campaign and then tweaking it to fit, all of the various cultural settings in which you might want to transport that advertising campaign, versus a global approach, which is, let's say you're Coca-Cola, you're in Atlanta, you develop one universal message, which you then feel will be equally effective across cultural boundaries. And practitioners and academics in marketing have been debating this issue for, as I said, many decades without coming to some conclusion as to how to tackle that particular controversy. In my books, I basically argue that the way you can tackle it is by using evolutionary psychology as the framework by which we can identify some phenomena that are culturally specific. So why is it that in one culture green refers to fertility, while another one it might refer to disease, say? Well, that might not be linked to any biological reasons. There might be some historical, accidental, or other reasons as to why a particular color is associated with a particular connotation in a given culture. And so if you're a marketer and you'd like to decide which color combinations to use, then you'd need to understand the cultural nuances, symbolic nuances of each culture. Now, there are other cultural differences that are due to biology. So, in one of my earlier Sad Truth clips, I've discussed Darwinian gastronomy, the idea that different cultures use more or less spices, more or less salt, more or less meat versus vegetable based dishes. And the reason why different cultures, if you like, develop various culinary traditions is very much related to a biological factor, and namely, this is known as the antimicrobial hypothesis, which basically refers to the extent to which a particular ecosystem or particular environmental landscape is how much pathogens does it have? What is the density of pathogens? And this tends to be correlated to the ambient temperature in a particular culture. So culinary traditions, which is a cultural manifestation, end up being an adaptive response to a biological problem. So in this case, a cross-cultural difference is due to a biological factor. And then, of course, you've got a third group of phenomena that are human universals. These are things that transcend culture. So the fact that an advertiser could use a facially symmetric person to peddle a beauty product, that will be understood in exactly the same way across cultures, because every culture understands facial symmetry in exactly the same way. There are no cultures that we are aware of where people who are grossly facially asymmetric are viewed as more beautiful than those who are facially symmetric. And actually, I had written a paper, I think it was around 2006, 2007, just at the time that my first book was coming out, which I had sent to the Journal of Marketing, which is one of the top journals in the field. And it had gotten actually a very good first round review, which that itself is quite an accomplishment. And then I dropped the ball in that I didn't submit the revise and resubmit in due time, and then now it's been languishing somewhere in my pile of to be completed projects. So I hope to at one point revive that paper. And so basically what I was doing in that paper is exactly discussing what I just mentioned in this clip. Basically having a taxonomy that allows you to understand when a particular phenomenon is culture specific and not due to biology, when it is due to a cultural factor, but that is due to biology, as per the use of spices in in cuisines, and when a phenomenon is a human universal that transcends across cultures. And so knowing how to, if you like, categorize a phenomenon would then allow an advertiser to understand whether the particular advertising copy that he or she is focusing on would be something that would be transportable across all cultures, or whether it would need to be tweaked to a particular cultural setting. So this gives you a good demonstration of how an understanding of evolutionary psychology could be used in a very practical context. In this case, the manner by which advertisers navigate through the local versus global advertising debate. I wanted to leave you off with two quotes that I've used in the past. This was one from 1964 by Norman B. Leo, advertising executive, and here's what he had to say. Quote, because effective advertising is an appeal to human fundamental needs, desires, and motivations. It is an appeal to basic human nature. Oh boy, he is succumbing to some biological essentialism. He must be transphobic. People the world over have the same basic need for food, clothing, and shelter, the same ambitions, the same egotism, and the same temptations. The setting changes, the climate, the culture, the idiom, but the basic human nature is the same everywhere. This gentleman was a evolutionary psychologist before the term existed in that form. So he was certainly spot on more than 50 years ago. And then here's another shorter quote. It is insight into human nature that is the key to the communicator's skill. This is William Birnbach, founder of DDB advertising firm, which is a very large firm from this past century. So in any case, these folks are good marketers precisely because they understand that ultimately to be a good marketer is to understand human nature and to understand which aspects of a advertising message are transportable across cultures and which would need to be tweaked. So there you have it, folks. A very clear demonstration of how one might apply evolutionary psychology in business. Hope you enjoyed this. Please share it. And again, if you appreciate my efforts, I don't want to put these behind a paywall. Many people have these sort of graded or hierarchical patron support systems, which I might end up having to do. But I'd like to, at this point, keep everything free. But I implore you that if you appreciate the effort, it does take my time and my efforts to do these. Please consider contributing. You can contribute as little as $1 a month. I mean, think about what that is in terms of the content that I'm providing you. And of course, I now have someone who has contributed recently $200 a month. I think that's the record so far. So I hope that you will consider help fund this channel. And many thanks for your interest. And I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.